Hello there, this is Yash Kumar Verma, and in this particular video I will be giving a short demo of the prototype that I've been building for a few days now. And in this particular prototype we have solved two problems. The first was the task of implementing a role-based access control system, RBAC systems, and the second was of caching large database responses. So we have amalgamated the both. So what we're doing in this is we've implemented a cache layer on top of the database on which the RBA system is based. So this is the repository that I've shared along with the application, and as you can see, it has a fairly well long written README. The reason for that is so that any other developer, like after this prototype is built, can easily refer to the aspects or the design choices that were made in this particular project. So in the starting itself, as you can see, there is a playlist attached, and in this particular playlist I've given a very detailed overview of how the project structure is of the application, the different roles, how the module and service breakdown, the testing, the methods of testing, the E2E test, performance tests, and the unit test that we have written, plus a detailed analysis of the caching system that we have implemented. So that can be seen from here. Then we have a small screencast of the tests running, plus the coverage reports are over here, and a Postman collection so that we can easily test the individual components just in case if we need that for running individually. So here I have the system along with me. So first of all, I'll be running the E2E test to demonstrate that how the roles have been implemented, and by the time they run, what I'll be doing is I'll be showing you. Let's not do that right now. What I'll be doing that is first of all demonstrate the role definitions that are there. So every user that comes to our site is by default assigned the role of a visitor. We are doing this with the help of Express middleware that we have written. It parses the cookies, reads the data that is there in it, and if they've already registered or if the cookie is a valid one, we try to decode it, and if it's a valid one, they have a role profile. Then we assign them the roles that are right for them, and if they don't have any role or if they are unauthenticated, then we assign them the role of the visitor. So we can also assign like this is just to demonstrate that there can be a role without basically involving the authentication part. So this particular role is of visitor, can be assigned to anyone. Now as you can see over here, we have implemented the roles in a hierarchical manner. So the users extend visitors, and then the moderators extend users, the admins extend moderators. So I've arranged it like this so that the admins include everything that's above it, the moderators include everything that's above it, and similarly for users and visitors. Now a small overview of the code of the directory structure that we have. A detailed one is given in a separate video. So in this one, basically you see all these different types of files, the config files. These are all dealt with in a separate video, and the main breakdown is of the modules and services. Services are basically reusable components that we are using a lot of times. So there are handlers for cache, for cookies, for databases, for loggers, for responses, utility functions, and everything. And everything that is related to our users is kept in this particular users directory, or the users module, we can call it. The unit tests are named as .spec.ts, and then the detailed tests or the end-to-end tests that we'll be running in the end of this video are placed in these E2E folders. So each of these folder contains the tests for the set roles. For instance, if we try opening the visitors file, you can see that this suite ensures that the visitor should not be allowed to list all the users, and not allowed to view the detail of individual profile, not be allowed to read a user, and they can only be allowed to create a new profile. So as you can see, while using these systems, let me show you the usage of the access control systems. So that is basically implemented in the routes itself. Right, so I'll minimize everything. So this one's used to list all the users, and the first thing that we are doing is we check if we resolve the role. This is done using the middleware, and this is a utility function to read the data from the application state. So if they have the privilege to read any profile, only then they can access this. Similarly, if they want to read the details of any given email, then there can be two options in that. So it demonstrates that how we can club conditions. Either they have the permission to read any profile, or they have the permission to read only their own profile, and the email that's provided in the URL is their own email. So when they're trying to read their own email, only then allow them to. Second, this creating user isn't of very like great importance. And then for the delete part, similarly, we have implemented something like this because the admins are allowed to delete any profile. So if either they have the privilege of deleting any profile, or they have the privilege of deleting their own profile and they're trying to delete their own profile. All right. So this is the way that we are handling it, and I'll start off the application now. We're launching it in the production mode. Basically, if you check out the package.json file, we have a few launch scripts over here, and there are two versions of running it. First is the development, and second is the production. In the production version, we do not have hot reloading, and we are directly running it off the TypeScript parser. So when we're developing, it is strongly recommended to use the start :dev command. That will ensure that we have a hot reloading feature, so the development is really pleasant. For this particular demo, I have set up three users as of now. The first is the admin, the second is a moderator, and the third is a user. So 3 accounts have been set up, and the cache is also empty, as you can see. Before we move on to the full-scale demonstration, there is one more interesting thing that I developed while creating this prototype. So if I open app.ts file, you see there's this package known as HTTP exception transformer. So what it does is it allows you to throw an error anywhere in the code base and then transform it to a response, right? So HTTP exception transformer. So what it does is you just have to include it as a middleware. I've done it on line 39, the last middleware that we have, and this allows you to throw errors anywhere. So you see in the controllers part, we don't have any try-catch sequences, right? So we are directly throwing an error, and that says the bad request exception. So that particular middleware will catch this error even if you're not using a try-catch block, and it would send the specific status code, and it would send the response always in a very structured format, so that the API clients that we have, even if we are accessing it through mobile applications in which there are many a times strict definitions for serialization and deserialization, that can also use the API in a very effortless manner. And this is publicly available on NPM, and I developed this by the time I was working on this particular prototype itself. So let's get started. The application has started. The MongoDB connection has been successful, and the Redis connection has been successful. If you're trying to run it locally, you can edit the configurations in default.yml, and the database string over here, and then the cache over here. Or we also have a Docker file in the system. So you can just build the Docker image and then attach to the these 4 environment variables that we have, the Redis host and port. If you want to enable or disable cache to check the differences between the two, you can do it from here itself, and also the Mongo URL. So I'll be pushing a compose file soon after the video. Alright, so let's get started, and everything is done over here. So just as a very small test, I'll try to log out if I'm already logged in. Alright, so let's just try to view the list of all the users. So when we are not logged in, we are a visitor, and the visitors are not allowed to. So this must throw an error. Alright, it says not enough rights to list the users, and the code is 403. Alright, because the visitors do not have the rights to list the users. Now moving on to the part where we try to log in. So let's just try logging in as a user for 1 second. User@gmail.com 12345. Okay, we have logged in, and when we try to get the users list, and as you can see over here, we can get the users list. Alright, now what we can do is we can try deleting other users. Alright, let's switch to the database part. You can see over here, yes, user@gmail.com, and user@gmail.com had the rights of a moderator. Alright, and that is the reason they were able to list all the details of the Now what we can do is we can the moderators cannot delete any random profile. So let's try doing that. Let's try deleting the profile of the admin as a moderator. So we go to delete users, and here we write admin@gmail.com, and this must ideally throw an error, and it says that not enough rights to delete this user. So this is all happening because of the dynamic way we are handling the roles, and how we are checking the roles in every call that's being made. And there are all these things are provided in the form of a Postman collection, so that you can easily test it out, and there are n permutations that can be made. Like you can try signing in using an admin and then see if everything's working fine for the users list, for the emails, for updations and deletions. This process kind of becomes very redundant after a time. So what I've done to eliminate the redundancy in this is I've written end-to-end tests. So as I've already shown in the beginning, so I'll run the test now and show you. Before I do that, there's one last thing that I should discuss over here. You can see that even like when we were demonstrating very simple usages, you see that the cache layer was working behind the task, and whenever the database was being called, it logs db.active. So whenever we are accessing something again, then the cache is hit, and when we are accessing something very new, the cache is like not hit, or we can see it as cache miss. Alright, so just to show you an example of a cache hit, let us just load the user details once more. So as you can see over here, it tells us that we are operating as the role of a moderator, and that and this time the data was stored from the cache hit itself, which means the data was hit from the cache itself. Plus, if you want to view the data that's stored in Redis itself, so you can see over here that user services.findAll and findAll by email and password, right? So everything's being stored over here. Now the final part of the video is the caching system. So I've created a very detailed video about how the cache is implemented and explaining each and every individual function, so you can check it out as well. So I'll run the tests, and this would run the test that I had already shown you. And then one final part is demonstrating how we are implementing the cache. So let's just open the users service, and in this, let's check out the services.ts. So the only line that we need to add caching to any particular method is @cache, and that is it. That is the thing that took me long to create this prototype and test it, because now if you want to implement caching on any particular signature on any particular function, you just have to add this small decorator, that is @cache, and then it's done. There's no additional syntax or no additional overhead whatsoever. You just have to include @cache, and the system implements caching on that particular method. And things would start to make sense if you check out the caches, the detailed video about caches, or you can also relate to some things happening over here. If you check out the name of the indexes, they are userservice.findAll, and which responds to this userservice.findAll. So what this decorator is doing is it analyzes this function, and then it generates a unique signature for it. That's class name function name, and then it saves it as an index. So if you check out that find one by email and password, that is basically this userservice.findOne by email and password. And yes, because the arguments are what that defines the response of function, that is also included in the index itself. So if you try opening this particular index, you see that this particular index contains the details of this user. Plus we also have a TTL setup, and it would expire in some time, so that is also handled itself. Plus you see over here we also have a method of invalidate user. So this invalidate user can be used sometimes, like a user tries creating a new application, and initially the cache responses were that the user does not exist, and then they try creating a new user, and then when they go to log in again, they want the changes to be there itself, because you cannot ask the user to come after 5 minutes by the time our cache invalidates automatically, or it arrives on a TTL and then come back. So we can't do that. So I've set up a method that is invalidate user that can be used to invalidate the cache in real time. Plus in the background, as you can see, all the tests have passed, and the rights of the admin, of the moderator, of the user, and of the visitor are all done. So finally I run the entire test suite, that's yarn test, and it will basically run all the unit tests and all the end-to-end tests as well. That is all from my side, and I will be pushing small changes to the code base as in when I find time, and as in when I find new methods by which I can improve the code quality and the way it can be easily developed further. So as you can see that now we have run the entire test suite, and we were testing the user controllers. We're using mocks and spy functions to ensure that the controllers are calling the right services with the right parameters, and that is it. And in the user service, as you can see, a similar thing has been done for user services as well. Total 54 tests that have all passed. Plus, if you check out the GitHub repository, we also have a CI setup. You can see over here, and we are testing all the things that are happening in real time as well. Yes, as you can see, we ensure we run the test, install the applications, and then the cache things that affect MongoDB, Redis, and then running tests, calculating coverage reports, and everything. Plus, the coverage reports are also attached here if you want to have a look. That is all from my side. Thank you.